Good morning. We'll call the Kennewick County Board of Commissioners meeting to order. For the first order of business, we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you and welcome everybody to the second County Commissioner meeting of the month. Today is Tuesday, April 16th. Welcome to everybody who's here and also anybody who's watching on YouTube or listening. So first order of business, you all received in your packet, you received the agenda. I would seek approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chair, also move.
Commissioner Dale Anderson moves on the agenda. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Also in your packet was the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of generally routine items, the approval of the minutes from the last meeting, the approval of the auditor's warrants and claims, that's the bills, approval of the human resources warrants and claims, also bills, and then the New London Fire Department Relief Association gambling permit application, which is an annual repeat application. So I would entertain a motion on the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Commissioner Gardner moves on the consent agenda. Do I hear a second?
Commissioner Berg will second.
Commissioner Berg seconds. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Up first in our general business discussion is a number of recommendations regarding broadband deployment. And Mr. Beshin, if you'd come up to the podium and state your name and who you represent, and you may proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, staff. Mark Beshin. I am the Broadband Committee Chair for the Kennewick County and City of Willmar Economic Development Commission. Come here today for two reasons. One is just to give you an update on where we are, and two, for a funding request. I'm going to flip around a little bit. So in your packet, we're looking at page 22, which is kind of this broad map. This is kind of the overview of where we are and what projects, as I'm sure you're all aware of, we were awarded $8.8 million. Yeah.
Excuse me, Mark. Can we get that camera, overhead camera? There's a camera straight up overhead. If you, when it gets turned on, if the public is watching, they'll be able to see that map that you're referring to. There you go. And Kelsey controls the zoom in and zoom out.
She does. See how well she does. There you go. It is in the packet too, so hopefully online it's there.
I'm doing this for the YouTube watchers because they don't.
And the audience, yeah.
Understood. So this is kind of where we are in general as a county. We were awarded the $8.8 million in grants from the state this last round, and that was a big win for us. We were the largest winner within the state, and so projects with Federated, with Lake Andrew, Colfax, Norway Lake, part of St. John's, all included in that larger project, and then also Fallen Township with Vibrant Broadband down on the southeast side. So again, another winning record. When I try to do some quick math, we've gotten over $15 million from the state in grants for projects overall. You add provider participation in there, so we're well over $20 million that we've invested in the county. So very good success rate with providers in the state, grant writing, that kind of thing. So we have more to do, but I just wanted to give you kind of an overview on where we are. The kind of bright green section is what we're going to talk about today. The brighter red, I guess I say, are projects that we've completed over the last basically 5 years, more or less. So we've got a good portion of the county that has seen projects. And we're then the kind of duller colors are just where the state says there's unserved, served, and unserved, underserved, and served areas of the county. We're trying to reach everyone, of course, and those are the areas that we need to focus on. So that's an overview in a nutshell. We're also working on digital opportunity plan which is affordability, education, those kind of things with the state. The state just had their overall plan approved by the federal government. And so we're seeing some additional funding from the federal government for those type of things. We plan on doing our own digital opportunity plan within Candido County and focusing on those aspects of broadband as well. So it's not just infrastructure, but other pieces too. So that's it, kind of in a nutshell of where we're at. The next thing, probably the best overview sheet would be page 21, which I will stop moving around. So this is the funding request. So the last award that we got, the $8.8 million, and did include Fallen Township in this area. That was one of the projects we applied for last time. However, it did not include Lake Lillian, Candy, Ohio, or Genesee Township. Good news is that the state opened funding again for another round right after the awards of the existing round, which is wonderful for us. So we essentially want to submit the same 3 projects once again. They're going to be submitted individually as separate townships with the goal of getting all 3 of them completed, but a better chance of at least one going. So the 3 townships have all approved their portion of it. It is substantially the same that that you approved last time I came. The only difference in Candy, Ohio, there was a small section that charter contested area, so there's a few less passings in Candy, Ohio Township. Other than that, it is all substantially the same. Same funding request, same amount, like I said, except for the exception of the Candy, Ohio area. So the total is $691,620.88 for approximately 444 passings. That's the general consensus. The provider is Vibrant Broadband again, or Meeker Co-op. The details are on, would be page 19 and 20 of these particular projects. I am looking for individual, there's 3 individual letters of support and 3 individual resolutions for each project that are in your packet. That's what the action item that I'm looking for. Just real quick, project 1 we identified as Genesee Township, 178 passings, county contribution $327,692. Project 2, Candy, Ohio Township, 179 passings, and a county contribution of $224,000 even. The last one is Lake Lillian Township with 87 passings, county contribution $139,928.88. The Lake Lillian project is the slightly different one where we're applying for the low density program again. So the state awards up to 75% of the project cost in grants. The only difference in that one. So ultimately we have ARPA dollars left that you have committed to broadband. Again, this is, we did not use these this last time because they weren't awarded, so we're just essentially applying again. So the total cost, as I said, was $691,620.88, and that would leave us $101,782.35 left in the ARPA funding, the 3/4 ARPA funding that you designated for broadband. A lot of numbers.
So we'll probably treat these resolutions as one. We could take a motion for all 3, but like a consent agenda, if there's any one of them somebody wants to pull out and have specific questions about, feel free to do that. But in the meantime, if there's any general questions on all 3 of the resolutions and projects, now's the time to ask Mr. Beshan those questions. Does anybody have any questions?
I'd like to make a motion if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yes, and it's Resolution 11, 12, and 13.
Yep, I'd move that we approve Resolution 2024-11, -12, and -13, if that's acceptable.
So it's fine by me. I don't think we're violating anything here. They're pretty much all exactly the same. Yep. So Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves on Resolution 2024-11, 12, and 13. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Gardner seconds. Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a comment, I think back, was it 2020 that we got the ARPA dollars? And at that time, when the board decided to make it their major priority with a 6-point-something million to use ARPA dollars to get broadband, never did I ever think that we would get this much done, to be honest. You know, we hoped, this is our only chance to ever do this. And the committee has done an excellent job of using those dollars to get additional dollars and make that stretch as far as possible. So we still got a ways to go, there's no doubt about it, but I just want to really say thank you to the committee for everything they've been doing.
Yeah, and Mark might be getting a little tired of me saying this and even embarrassed, but he's done yeoman's work for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. You were involved before it was a thing, I think. And so, I think we all recognize that work on the committee that the hardest work is probably ahead of us. Because when the broadband dollars are no longer available, how do we finish up covering those parts of the county that aren't covered? So anytime you have an opportunity to visit with your state and federal legislators, remind them that we won't be done until we have 100% coverage in the county. So, any other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Do you have stuff for us to sign, or does Kelsey have it?
I have it.
It's in the packet, okay. All right. Lost my agenda here, well, I got it in front of me too. Next up on the agenda is the 2024 AHL Healthcare Group Contract. Melissa? I bet you're going to tell us what AHL stands for.
I wish, yeah. That is the name of the company that purchased. So what I'm here for is in 2022, there was a contract. There's 4 sales contracts that Kandiyohi County maintains. And one of those providers is to Crow's Nest. Crow's Nest has been sold by this new company, AHL, out of Duluth. The sale is official on May 6th of this year. So in order for our clients who are receiving services, sales services through Crow's Nest, we need to have a temporary contract in place with HAL from May 6th through June 30th of 2024. We will be negotiating new contracts for all of our sales providers effective July 1st of 2024. With this new contract, nothing is changing. There's no change with dollar amounts. There's no change with who's receiving services. There's no change with what they are providing. It is just a change from Crow's Nest to AHL as the new owner of the company.
Ms. Helgeson, I failed to ask you to identify yourself by your name and who you're.
I am sorry, Melissa Helgeson, and I am a social service supervisor with the Home and Community-Based Waiver Program.
Thank you. And then I have a question. I think I know this. Crow's Nest is an organization up in Sauk Center based out of or am I thinking of a different? Or is that Eagle's Nest? That could be.
The Crow's Nest contract that was in place, that's currently in place, is out of Kandiyohi.
Okay.
I will be 100% honest with the board. I was not here in 2022 when these contracts were negotiated or all of that had taken place. I'm just here now to say Crow's Nest has been sold. A new company owns Crow's Nest. And in order to continue to provide the service, we just need to have this in place from May 6th to June 30th.
And then it'll come before us
Yes,
again?
prior to probably in June, May, I'm not sure when it will be on the board agenda. I will be coming with all 4 sales contracts to renew all of those contracts once we've done contract negotiations.
And you're looking for action today to approve this
To approve,
interim contract?
correct, to approve the interim contract so we do not have a disruption in services to our clients receiving the sales services.
Thank you. So you've heard Ms. Helgeson's request. How do you wish to act on this?
Mr. Chair, I so move, make a motion to approve this contract with, what are the initials again?
AHL.
H-
So Commissioner Berg is approving the interim contract, excuse me, between AHL taking over from Crow's Nest until sometime in June. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you. I'll see you all again soon with new contracts, and I'll be able to answer all of your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next up, the child abuse, this is Child Abuse Prevention Month, and we're going to have a presentation from Alicia Sweep and Carly Kranz. Welcome. But state your name anyway when you get up there. Okay.
Good morning. I am Alicia Sweep. I am a children's supervisor here at Candiota County.
And I'm Carly Krantz. I'm also a Children's Services Supervisor here at Candiota County.
Welcome.
We did have a PowerPoint presentation to accompany our presentation this morning. The month of April has been designated to be Child Abuse Prevention Month. We would like to take a moment to recognize our staff and the work they do within our community to prevent child abuse. All of you have been supplied with the blue ribbon, which represents awareness of the prevention of child abuse. In your folders, you have also been supplied the proclamation of Candiota County Child Prevention Month. This proclamation outlines Minnesota's enduring commitment to prevent child abuse and neglect, which demands that individuals and communities partner together to support parents in raising their children in states of nurturing and safe society. Candiota County Health and Human Services works to prevent child abuse in a variety of ways, one of which our agency strives to prevent child maltreatment is through a child welfare response. Candiota County Health and Human Services fields calls on a daily basis from individuals who are concerned about the safety of children within our community. When a child maltreatment report comes into the agency, they are screened accordingly. Reports that are screened in and meet the threshold laid out in the Minnesota Guidelines for Child Abuse can go two different ways. Traditional investigations and family assessment response are the two tracks of which a child maltreatment report can be screened in. When meeting the threshold laid out in the guidelines from the Department of Health and Human Services, it can go, like I said, traditional investigation or family response. Both of those are a child protection response. If a report does not meet that threshold, then reports can be screened out, but can also be addressed through a child welfare response, parent support outreach program, or referrals to other community resources within our community.
Child Welfare Services. When Candiota County Health and Human Services receives a child maltreatment report that does not meet child maltreatment screening guidelines, the agency can open a child welfare assessment. This assessment is a way to connect with families and try to address concerns before it raises to the level of meeting the threshold of a child protection response. These also include reports of pregnant women who are reportedly using controlled substances. Child welfare assessment for truancy concerns are received and responded to through the child welfare assessment when a child is having excess unexcused school absences. Through these assessments, we work with Candiota County Attorney's Office to offer truancy intervention mediation to the family to assist in coming to the conclusion of what the barriers are to getting the children to school. Child welfare case management is a service offered by Candiota County Health and Human Services. Through this service, a case manager is assigned to work with families ongoing in preventing child maltreatment and building on the overall strengths of the family and building in their natural supports. Parent Support Outreach Program is a program that Candiota County contracts with United Community Action Partnership to provide a voluntary early intervention program that focuses on the family's strengths to assist in meeting their basic needs. Recipients of this program can seek out these services themselves or be referred by the community agency, including Kennewick County Health and Human Services. And lastly, relative care. For those cases that do meet the threshold of which we need to intervene with a child protection response, we work to build with the family's informal supports. This includes doing relative placement and safety planning with families to build on the family's natural support system. Doing these things help provide safety and prevent future child maltreatment.
So we would like the board to move with recognizing April as the Child Abuse Prevention Month for Candiota County.
Would you like to read that proclamation?
I do not have that proclamation in front of me. I don't know if you guys do. Thanks. Thank you. So it states, Candiota County Child Abuse Prevention Month, April 16th, 2024. Whereas it is critical that children are guaranteed their health, well-being, and protection, and whereas thousands of children in Minnesota are affected by child abuse and neglect each year, often causing lasting psychological, emotional, and physical effects, and whereas all families can benefit from strong support systems and resources in the face of challenges, and whereas although intervening in the lives of children and their families is an important responsibility at all levels of government, preventing abuse and neglect is a shared obligation, and whereas effective child abuse prevention activities succeed because of the partnerships created between child welfare professionals, education, health, business, community organizations, law enforcement agencies, faith-based organizations, and families, and whereas Minnesota's enduring commitment to prevent child abuse and neglect demands that individuals and communities partner together to support parents in raising their children in a safe, nurturing society. Now, therefore, the Candiota County Board of Commissioners do hereby proclaim April as Candiota County Child Abuse Prevention Month and urge all citizens to join in to promote the safety and well-being of all children and families, and to recognize the child welfare professionals and abilities who work tirelessly to protect our children. Let us honor the strength and resilience of survivors of child abuse.
Thank you very much. So you heard the proclamation, and I'd entertain a motion to accept this proclamation. And then when we're done, if anybody has any questions, we'll give you an opportunity to answer those.
Okay, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to proclaim April as Candiota County Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson moves on the Child Prevention Proclamation. Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Commissioner Dale Anderson seconds. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Now, if we could open up the floor, if you could answer questions. Anybody have any questions regarding foster care and child protection?
I just have
Commissioner
one
Anderson.
comment, Mr. Chair. So before I was a county commissioner, my son was in school, and once in a while we'd go, to doctor appointments or whatever, and we didn't bother calling into the school, and we get a call from the school, and they'd say, "Where's your son?" And we'd say, "Well, he's with us today." And they're like, "Well, you got to call us in," and I never took it seriously. But when I became a commissioner, I think it was maybe my first meeting, I realized that, if you don't, report to the school why, give a reason why your son is absent or your daughter, that, after about three of those those times that occur, that you might get a call or a knock on your door from a social worker. Anyway, so it opened my eyes a little bit, and but what you guys do is great. Another thing I didn't realize was that there's some kids that don't want to go home at the end of the school day, and it's because they have issues at home, and I just, for me, it's really hard to grasp that, because I could not wait to get home every day from school. So thank you guys for what you do.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, I have a grandson who had the same thing happen. He missed a few days of school for doctor's appointments or whatever, and all of a sudden they were getting a phone call.
Yep.
So, any other questions or comments? Go ahead, Commissioner Burke.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank you, all of you down there, what you do. I don't think the public totally still understands what's all involved in this. And there's so many different stereotypes of social workers and coming in and taking somebody's child, but they don't understand all the rules and regulations and the night's sleep you lose over every one of those placements and making sure that you're dotting every I and crossing every T, because you're being so watched even more so nowadays, and that's good. But it's a very complicated process, and I think we just got a little piece of what that's like. But thank you so much, and all your staff as well. We are lucky to have those kind of services available, and the families are too, and the kids. So thank you.
And I'd ask you to expound a little bit on the family foster program. And I think I know a little bit about that, but some of the questions I have is, like, what percent of your child placements are family, foster families? Because it seems to me that would be the most effective way to intervene. Then, does that family receive the same support as any other foster provider? And then, like the ICWA rules, is the family the first place to try to place a child when you need to place a child, or the different rules apply?
Yeah, so our agency, actually, we have been adding a lot to our relative search process and really engaging relatives right away when children do get removed. Our county is actually a little bit above the state average for relative placements. I think last year was about 63% of our children that were removed were placed with relatives. And then I don't remember your second question, but your last question was about Native American children. Typically, the tribes are involved in those decisions, so those decisions are made jointly with whatever reservation that the child identifies with. We do strive to place children in homes that can best meet their cultural needs, and if they are affiliated with Native American heritage, that would be our primary choice in placement. And then your second question.
The
sorry,
middle
could you
question
repeat?
was, do relatives or families receive the same level of support as a non-relative provider?
Yes, yep, they get the same support, and not if more too. I think Constance and Jolyn presented a couple months ago about a different grant for trauma-informed therapy, so that was for relative care as well, to help support that.
Any other questions or comments?
Do you have anything to
Well, thank you guys in your department and everybody who works in this important area for the work you do.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We are way, way ahead of schedule here, which just five. Let's take a 5-minute break
Okay.
and then Austin Hillbrand. We need to do some catching up because of someone who scheduled it. I mean, the clock needs to catch up with us because someone's coming at 10:05 and I don't know if they'll be early. Maybe we can text Jill if we're ahead. So we'll take a 5-minute recess.
IT, are you ready?
Ready. Take the trial.
Yeah. We will reconvene the Kennewick County Board of Commissioners. Next up on the agenda is the Resolution 2024-14, 2024 Noxious Weed Appeals Committee. Mr. Hilbrands?
Morning, Mr. Chair,
Welcome.
board members. Austin Hilbrands coming to you today as County Ag Inspector. Looking for you to pass Resolution 2024, which will establish the 2024 Noxious Weed Appeals Committee. Minnesota Statute 1883 requires that the County Board of Commissioners appoint members of Noxious Weed Appeal Committee. This committee would be called upon if the Ag Inspector or local township local weed inspector issue a notice of noncompliance or notice to control and eradicate noxious weeds to a landowner in Candioi County. The landowner can appeal this decision to this committee. The committee would meet on site and decide whether or not eradication or control of the noxious weed needs to take place. And then they would make that decision. The committee would automatically be called if control eradication is needed in any type of row crop. The committee consists of 3 members and up to 6 alternate members. And then discussions with Lauren in the past, in the last 25 years, this committee has never been called. We've had pretty good voluntary compliance in Candioi County for noxious weeds.
I was going to ask that question. When somebody sees a weed that they suspect might be a noxious weed, what should they do?
They should get a hold of their 2 township supervisors. They're going to be the local noxious weed inspector. Otherwise, they can also call me, the county ag inspector.
Okay, but the first step is the township.
Yeah, first step is generally the township. The 2 supervisors are designated the local noxious weed inspector. And they would go out and inspect that area and then decide whether or not a notice of control or eradication needs to be given, depending on the noxious weed type. So,
And I assume that if it's within the city limits, you'd
yep, city limits would be the
contact the
city
city.
mayor or anybody the city designates as a local weed inspector.
So you've heard the presentation from Mr. Hilbrands on Resolution 2024-14, establishing the Weed Appeals Committee, Noxious Weed Appeals Committee. I'd look for a motion to approve Resolution 2024-14.
Mr. Chair, I'll move Resolution 2024-14.
Commissioner Dale Anderson moves on 2024-14. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Any questions or comments for Mr. Hilbrands? Well, let's keep up the good track record here of a 0 for 25 maybe this year.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we got to vote on it.
That's right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next up on the agenda is the Planning Commission recommendations. Mr. Van Dyken.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Eric Van Dyken, County Zoning Administrator, here today with 2 requests for action. This is pursuant to the Planning Commission meeting last week, Monday, and April 8th. The Planning Commission considered 2 conditional use permit requests at that time and have made recommendations on both. The first item is a wireless communications tower. This is a self-supported tower at 250 feet. This will be just north of the city limits of Wilmer, on the west side of Highway 71, across from Eagle Lake. The property owner is Dunick Incorporated, and the Planning Commission does recommend approval with 1 condition, just having to do with requiring access off of the newly constructed Township Road there, 19th Street Northeast, and that access being approved by the Town Board of Supervisors. With that condition and the findings, as you see in the draft minutes, staff recommends approval.
So you've heard recommendations from staff regarding the conditional use permit. I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, also move.
Commissioner Dale Anderson moves on the conditional use permit. I assume with the.
Yep, with the conditions and findings.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Commissioner Gardner seconds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. You may proceed.
Thank you. The second request before you today is a request from Tepetonka Club LLC. This is for a, what's called a conservation subdivision. It's a unique form of development that intends to provide public benefits and also benefits to the developer. A conservation subdivision by its very nature is similar to something else that we do in rural shoreland districts called a planned unit development. And the concept is that we can take the allowable dwelling units and we can cluster them together. And then we leave common open space for benefits to the public and benefits to the developer. That common open space is then owned by all those that buy a unit within this development. The proposal here from Tepetonka Club relates, of course, to their golf course project, and it includes 9 units proposed. You can see them in the map as kind of being clustered into a unit, 5 units and 4 units that are near the northern side of their overall property, and then face toward the south, overlooking various portions of the property. The overall conservation subdivision development is just under 40 acres and does allow them a density of these 9 units as they have proposed. Trying to think of anything else to highlight right off the top. There was a fair amount of discussion, I thought substantial and very fruitful discussion at the Planning Commission. And at the end of that, the Planning Commission did recommend approval. You'll see in the minutes that there are 7 proposed conditions and findings 1 through 8 in the draft minutes. And if there are any questions, I can certainly entertain those, but that is the recommendation before you today to approve with the 7 conditions and the findings as you see in the minutes.
So you've heard the recommendation from staff to approve the plating for Tepetonka Village. How do you wish to proceed?
Mr. Chair, I so move.
Commissioner Berg moves on staff recommendation, I assume with the
Facts and findings
facts
and
findings
conditions.
and
Yes.
conditions, yes. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Any discussion? Commissioner Gardner.
Just a question for Eric. You said this particular piece is 4 acres? Is that what I heard you say, or
No, thank you. Just under 40.
40, 40?
Yeah.
Okay. That's the clarification I was.
Yeah, sorry if I
I
spoke
didn't
not very
hear it.
clearly.
That's-
Sorry.
That's me. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just would you clarify again, and just to be extra clear on this, looking at the minutes and so forth, there was a question about it being a nonprofit and if it's going to be taxable. Could you just comment on that again, if it is or isn't?
Certainly, thank you. There, of note in the declaration, there was some concern, or people have had some questions, I guess, about in the declaration of the owners association that will own the common area, not the individual units. They note how they're organizing themselves legally under Minnesota nonprofit statute, and some have expressed concern that this would exempt them from paying property taxes. I have had a chance again to clarify with the county assessor Val's Ford that nonprofit status does not equate to property tax exempt status. And so I've received assurance again that they will be subject to property taxes. Also, thing to note about that is that covers only the open space of that development, not the dwelling units, which are individually owned. So those certainly are not, those are privately owned. And then the association is what's organizing as a nonprofit. But again, in order to qualify for tax exempt status, they would have to meet a number of very specific threshold, well, not thresholds, criteria, I would say. And Val certainly could I don't know if Val made it here today. Oh, she is here. Okay, she snuck in behind me. I had requested that Val came, and so if there were any further detailed questions on that, that I would defer with the chair's permission to Val to be able to answer in any greater detail than that, so.
I've seen a head shake, I'm not sure what that means. You would
No,
prefer,
that was with intent.
and,
Yes.
go ahead,
I'd like to
express your
hear from
intent.
Val.
Okay, so, Ms. Orr, if you wish to come forward, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm Val Savor, County Assessor, and he did speak to me this morning regarding some clarification. And this entity that they've created for their nonprofit does not create any exemption. There's very specific statutes that talk about exemption, and the exemption has to be owned by an exempt institute, used for exempt purposes, and it has to be reasonably necessary to further the mission of the exempt organization. So there's some things that are always exempt would be like churches or institutes of learning, state-owned property, those kind of things. And then there's also very basic requirements that, an institute to be exempt has to be supported by material donations or gifts or government grants. The undertaking of the organization is no immediate expectations for material rewards. The statute goes on with the recipient, it must be for a charity, it must receive benefits or services to reduce at no cost, or organization must provide services to the public that alleviate the burden or responsibilities that would otherwise be borne to the government. So this entity as a private golf course does not meet any of those statutes. It's not a 501c organization like a goodwill type of an organization has to be to get any of these. They have to be, that's kind of the basis of it, that they, need to have a 501c3 organization to start with. And then they have to meet these very, very specific list of rules. There's more, but this organization does not meet the description of an exempt. But the threshold that this entity is it's basically a nonprofit. They file with the Secretary of State. They're granted a nonprofit status. And I'm guessing that I have an association that I own a property in, and I am the Secretary Treasurer, and we do have a nonprofit status just like that. I collect the money to pay for the dues, and then I pay the bills. And that's basically what that nonprofit is used for, is just they collect the money. There's never any extra money in the account, and it's just used to pay the bills. Any questions?
Thank you for that explanation.
That's on my.
Any questions or further comments? Appreciate you coming in and providing that background.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Do have a question for Eric.
Okay.
I know you clarified it very well at the hearing the other night, but just for the public, Lot 1 is close to Shakopee Creek, and it's very steep going down, and I know you clarified it, but do you want to just touch on it a little bit, just for the public, so that they get a little more of an understanding of that lot number 1 being close to the creek like it is?
You bet. Thank you, Commissioner. Lot 1 would be the farthest west of all the lots that are proposed. Lot 1 comes closest to two different things. It comes closest to an area of bluff, which the rules require special protections for a bluff. We did fair amount of specific calculation with the applicant's representative, or actually two different representatives, technically, to go over where does that bluff fall, and making sure we didn't have a bluff setback or actual bluff on that property that would keep them from building. The bluff ends up being a fair amount west of this. They do have some fairly steep slope in front of them yet, but not enough to constitute an actual bluff, so bluff setbacks don't come into play. There's also then a stream setback. The stream is, of course, kind of meandering through there, and it happens to meander kind of a little northern crook near to Lot 1. So some of the required 100-foot setback from that stream for structures does overlap onto that lot, not such that it doesn't leave a significant building envelope for them to be able to build. So, and it is pretty typical for us, like if you consider all of our lakes, we have lots that go right to the water on pretty much all of our lakes, and that does require then that the first number of feet, depending on the classification of the lake, are off limits for building. Same with lot 1 and 2 in particular in this development. There would be some of the further south portions of it that would not be available to be built on, but certainly adequate size building envelope for them to fit structures.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Commissioner Anderson. Anybody else? Commissioner Gardner?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a note that I did receive an email from our county engineer, Mel Odens, to the topic of County Road 40 being in our 5-year capital improvements plan. And that was already in the works prior to this project being proposed or done. Just want to make sure that folks know that we aren't doing this just because the entity is going in there now. Make sure that, people know that this was part of the plan all along. That's all I have.
Thank you. And I would note, going back, going back to Commissioner Dale Anderson's comment and question about the plat. It was a little confusing to us that night as we saw the plat laying there. It seemed obvious that the plat itself might be closer than that setback rule, but it's the structure within that plat that is really the defining the setback requirement, not the front edge of the plat. So if people see that map, just keep that in mind, that it's where the structure is placed within that plat, that if there is one placed, that will define the setback. Any other comments or questions? Then all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, we're a little early, but Jill is here, so we'll have you come forward and present Resolution 2024-15.
Well, good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I am Jill Bankson, Executive Director for the Candioi County Housing and Redevelopment Authority. And also with me today is Mr. Mark Olson. Mark is the mayor of the city of Atwater. And I am going to present to you a proposed project for the city of Atwater to build a fourplex market rate rental housing project. This project would be located in the city of Atwater, as I just said, to be rented at market rate rents. The project site consists of 2 lots located north of Highway 12 on Sunrise Lane and on the east boundary limits of the city. It sits across the street and adjacent to other townhomes built in the late 1990s, so it will blend in well with the neighborhood. The HRA has owned these 2 lots since 2018, and it will be the owner and the developer of the project. In the past, the HRA has developed similar townhomes in New London, Pennock, Raymond, and Candy, Ohio, and we still own those units. The Atwater townhomes will be similar to what the HRA currently has, and they will consist of being built slab on grade, 1 level. All units will have 2 bedrooms, walk-in closets, 1 bath, dining, kitchen, living room areas, attached garages, and 2 of the units will have double-car garages. One of the units with the double-car garage will also be a handicapped unit. And rent on the units will start at $11.50, plus tenants will be responsible for all utilities. The development budget, now this being a small project, I acknowledge up front that this is more expensive than to build something with more units in where the soft cost can be split across more units. But again, this is 2 small lots in town, in the city, which is landlocked, and the 2 lots are available. So our choices are either put 2 single-family homes on those lots or bring in 2 additional families into the community by building a 4-plex. Our development budget is $1,469,465. And we are pursuing this now due to additional funding that's become available in the state through the 2023 legislature to fill in funding gaps and make this project feasible. Specifically, we're pursuing funding for the project from Minnesota Housing's Workforce Development Program and the State Affordable Housing Aid Program. The Workforce Housing Development Program is specifically for building market rate housing in greater Minnesota. So that means market rate housing, no income restrictions, no rent restrictions. It is a competitive funding program, which MHFA is expecting a lot of applications to come in this funding round. And it's for cities to apply for, which are scored based on various criteria, including matching funds, the percentage of Minnesota housing dollars in the project, and being located in a community of less than 5,000 population. The city of Atwater would be the applicant for the funding, and if awarded the funding, would be the city's contribution to the project. Minnesota Housing scores all applications for up to 76 total points, and as proposed, I'm anticipating this project will receive 71 points. 2 points will be missed for percentage of, for percentage of total funds from other sources, excluding a mortgage. In order to receive these 2 points, another $300,000 would need to be committed to the project. 3 points will be missed because the project is not located in an opportunity zone. Opportunity zones are typically in regional centers. For example, the city of Wilmer has an opportunity zone. These are areas of the city with concentrated low-income households. And being this is funding for greater Min, but for small communities, I don't anticipate that a lot of applications will be coming in and receiving those points. The State Affordable Housing Aid Program are dollars that flow from the state to each county in Greater Min, and we are requesting Candioi County contribute dollars from their allocation to this project. Our budget for the development of this project includes $360,831, which will be the request to Minnesota Housing for the city of Atwater. Minnesota Housing's funding requires matching dollars, and that's where we come to the county. We're asking for $122,693 from your state affordable housing aid allocation and $250,000 from your local housing trust fund, which those dollars actually come from the Candioi County HRA. We are not asking for county dollars from your levy, from your general fund, or from any of your reserve funds. The remaining $725,941 will come from the HRA, and that will be a combination of a permanent loan, the value of the land that's already been purchased, a $50,000 3-year deferred developer fee to the HRA, and the remaining in cash. Reasons for this project: small communities in Candioi County, such as Atwater, are not attracting private developers to construct small townhome projects. This is a market rate project for the workforce the HRA can assist the community with by getting it built and potentially reselling the project to a future developer, private investor. Next steps, so this is a first step, seeing if the county is interested in participating in the project by committing the requested funds and approving a pilot agreement for the HRA since it will be governmentally owned. 5% of rents would be payment in lieu of taxes, which is exactly what our other projects in our other communities pay. The HRA will then approve the proposed project, including sources of HRA funds. Final step is for the Atwater City Council to give final approval to submit the app, and then this application would go to Minnesota Housing Finance Agency for the Workforce Housing Program. By April 30th, we will hear the results of Minnesota Housing's decision in August. With that, there is a resolution in your packet that does ask for your support for the dollar amounts committed and to approve a pilot agreement. And Mr. Chair, I stand for questions.
So we can do this either way. We can ask for a motion first, or we can ask for, try to answer questions first. What are your wishes?
Mr. Chair, I'll move Resolution 2024-15.
Commissioner Gardner moves Resolution 2024-15. Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Commissioner Dwayne Anderson seconds. Questions?
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Gardner.
Thank you very much. Jill, thank you for being here today, and thank you, and also the board for putting forward this, this application. I know this is the first that we've done in some time, so appreciate all of your hard work on this. You talk about the opportunity zone a little bit, and I just wanted to mention that I happen to know that both the cities and actually quite an area around those cities of Olivia and Danube have designated opportunity zones. And I suspect that that might be a help to a community like that if they were to put forward an application like this as well. And so perhaps some of our smaller cities may want to take a peek at that option as well, just to make sure that they're especially viable for this. Can you talk a little bit about, this is a market rate project. Can you talk a little bit about the difficulty in getting subsidized housing, especially in our small cities like this? And the difficulties in not only finding funding, but in finding developers who want to do this?
Sure, so I can go way back to when the HRA built the existing units in New London and Pennock and Raymond, and because I was actually here then, getting on the tail end of my time here, I think. But at that time, you know, you could, construction costs were so much lower, you could just issue a revenue bond and that would pay for it and it would cash flow. This is the second time we are actually looking at this with the HRA. We looked at doing this back in 2019 and submitting an application to Minnesota Housing. But back then, there was even more money that was needed and there was fewer state resources to put into it. So we're bringing it back because now there's more state resources. And as far as, you know, private developers building subsidized housing, well, that's going to be your low-income housing tax credit projects. And you need, you know, close to 50 units to make a project like that work. And it's very competitive. It's very, scoring criteria is you need every point in order to bring it in. And typically those projects are going to go in a Wilmer or a Red Wing or a Brainerd or a more regional community county seat type where it has larger population in a rural area. You don't see much of that going in small communities of less than 5,000 population.
And if I may, so our smaller communities are really behind the eight ball where it's concerned with that type of housing. I know our friends in Atwater can use every unit they can get, and I will certainly be supportive of this resolution today.
Other questions?
Mr. Oh, go ahead.
I heard you over here.
Okay, all right, Mr. Chair, thank you. So these units, and are there income requirements or restrictions for anybody, or can anybody that wants to move into the area and?
That is correct. This program is specific for market rate. You get more points if you do not have any income restrictions attached to it. So
All right.
in order to max our points, these will not be income restricted.
Okay, and then what was this SAHA? What did that stand for again?
Sure, that's your county state affordable housing aid that's coming to each county from the state of Minnesota.
All right, so basically, it doesn't really cost the county money? Am I correct on that?
Just your allocation from the state through that program and your housing trust fund dollars, which have been funded by.
That we already did?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and if I may, would you clarify the source of the local housing trust fund dollars. These are not any of the dollars that we used from our ARPA allocation.
That is correct.
This is direct
Right.
from HRA.
It is, right, correct. You do have ARPA funds in your housing trust fund. However, those would create income restrictions on the project. So we do not want to use your ARPA funds on this project.
So, if I may, the question or comment Commissioner Gardner made about not being ARPA funds, you're talking about the state allocation, $150,000, or the $250,000 local, or both?
We're looking for the 121, let me get my number right here. 122,693 from the state
Okay,
allocation. And the 250 is dollars that the HRA already committed to the local housing trust fund. But technically, the trust fund is your fund, not the HRA's fund.
right. And so I think the question was, where do those dollars come from in the 250,000 in the local trust fund?
The HRA, which the HRA earns about 300,000 annually from projects it manages for other
And you have
private
taxing
entities.
authority as well.
And we
correct?
have with your,
So it's not from our general levy that we approve every year.
that's correct.
Okay, thank you. And Commissioner Berg, you had some.
Oh, yeah, thank you. It's good questions and clarification. That actually answered some of the questions I had already. I did, one of the questions, though, you keep saying these are, the SAHA funds are for affordable housing, but this is market rate, I think you can still use it for market rate housing then.
Yeah, correct, yes.
Oh, so it's affordable, okay, so it's a little confusing. So there's no option for affordable,
Not with this project, because in order.
even though you're using funds from that pot? Well, you know.
Yes, because that pot does have a little criteria that some entities, small entities can be used for market rate.
And,
Yep.
and then part of the thing is also, is it 4 or 5% then of the project? Is that including the rent then?
Yeah.
It goes back to HRA to help build up your funds again?
Yes,
Right.
correct.
Okay. And is that off the top of the project at all, too? Off the $1.5 million?
Say that one more time. I
Oh,
didn't quite follow there.
The funds for the project of 4 to 5%, that goes back to HRA. You estimated this project at $1.5 million. Is that 4 or 5% coming off of that as well, of the building construction too?
So that, the 5% is the pilot agreement? I
Yeah.
mean, the 5% off of rents is what goes
Or
to
just
the.
off the rent?
Yes,
It's
so
not
that.
on the construction or anything?
Right, so so after it's developed, then you're in your operating
Yep, yeah, I
period, so
got
that
you.
5% goes back to the county for county, city,
Sure.
school district, payment in lieu of taxes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, may I keep following with another question, a couple other questions here, but I'm trying to think what that was now. I really want to state that I'm really supportive of doing this project. Don't get me wrong. I was kind of hoping, can we even do more? How can we stretch those dollars? But it sounds like that's about the best way you can go forward with this. The question I had was, on the charts that you had in the drawings, it was, didn't copy real well. What are the square feet of each unit?
So these are about 1,100 square feet.
11, each one, okay, so, very good. I guess that answered my questions.
Commissioner Dale Anderson.
I guess my question is, how do you come up with that 1150 for the rent? Is that based on a study, or how did you come up with that rent cost?
Good question. So I actually had lower rents proposed initially, but as I'm preparing to apply for this, you can, visit with Minnesota Housing and get their feel for, get some input from them. They get data from the Department of Employment and Economic Development on what market rate rents should be in the county. So that's where I'm at,
Okay.
based on their input.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Go ahead, I'm doing a little math here.
Okay, thank you. So just to clarify, it says it's a fourplex. Is it 4 separate units, or is it actually a fourplex?
Correct. It is 4 separate townhomes, side by side,
Okay.
separate entrances.
So none of them are connected? they don't touch, or do they?
They'll have a common wall.
They do have common
Yes,
wall.
but they'll
Okay.
have their own separate entrances. It's not like you open a door and walk in a hallway and go
Okay.
into a unit.
Yep,
They have their
okay.
own separate entrances.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And, excuse me, if they ever go up for sale, can they be, would it be sold as all four of them, or could individual families buy each one of those fourplexes?
Oh, boy, you're ahead of me.
I mean, it seems like, the biggest challenge we have in housing right now is home
Yeah,
ownership, and people who live in the home, or who own the homes they live in. And if this could be sold, the starting price is fairly high, but
right.
can they be sold individually?
I think it's certainly something we could look into. If this goes forward, we will be in a deferred loan agreement with Minnesota. Well, actually, we'll be in it with the city will be in it with the state. A 3-year deferred loan agreement, so you have to comply with all the rules of everything for at least 3 years. And then after that, we could definitely look at something like that.
And it seems to me that I know housing is very expensive right now, that under current market, if you took 1.4 million divided by 4, you probably wouldn't find an individual buyer for that 1,100 square foot home. When they go up for sale, if they would go up for sale, are you trying to recapture all of that money, or a portion of it? I'm thinking more like in New London now. There's some that have been probably depreciated by now. They're still owned by HRA, generating revenue, but if they were sold, they'd also be, what I was doing the math on is, how does that PILT, payment in lieu of taxes, compared to what property taxes would
Right.
actually be?
And that would be, I have never looked into that. I mean, I've never done the comparison of what does payment in lieu look like compared to what would traditional tax. I mean, obviously, I know it would be more if it was just back in the private sector, but I don't know by how much more.
Okay.
But, yeah, that would be interesting to look into.
And the question about in 3 years or whenever that deferment is up, if they were to be able to be sold, would the sale price be 1/4 of the total cost?
I don't, to be honest, Mr. Chair.
I might be getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, I don't know that I could answer that or would want to speak for the HRA board either. Yeah,
But,
that would,
so let's
yeah.
just ask that same question of the units in New London. You know, they'd probably be market rate, whatever the market would bear for them, correct?
right,
Okay.
correct,
Regardless of what it costs to build them.
correct.
Commissioner Burke.
Yeah, just several more questions, if you don't mind. The other projects, can you refresh me? You know, there's Pennock, Raymond, New London. Are they all market rate? as
They
well?
are.
They all are market rate too as well?
Yep.
Okay, good to know that. I had another couple other questions. Well, one was, has nothing, well, yeah, 2 questions. We brought up the subject about selling them, and eventually, I think, that's the intent to sell them back? Or is it
It's
the idea that
definitely-
HRA keeps making revenue?
You know, again, I don't want to speak for the HRA board, but I will say that we did discuss doing that in the future and also as a way of raising more revenue for the HRA to do more projects in the future.
And this is in my own mind, HR, I'm not on your board, so that's why I'm asking these questions. But I always think of it as doing affordable housing, and now you're doing market rate, and governments and being, I don't want to be competitive with the private sector neither. So how can we make that work out?
Right. And I will say we're only doing this project because those lots were, I don't know, they've been there forever. And nothing was ever done with them. And that was something where we saw we were meeting a niche that isn't being made by the private sector there. We don't want to compete with the private sector either by putting up big market rate projects in Wilmer. That's not our place, you know?
No, there's, going back, are there any plans or ideas for the ARPA dollars that did go into the Housing Trust Fund? And I just have a suggestion or how you would look at that. Like I'd like to see more housing there if possible. This is going to be $250 to $300 a square foot, roughly, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And, what if those ARPA dollars were used, because you would have more flexibility with those, say that you would, I'm trying to do the math too, off the top of my head, but say $50 per square foot could be, ARPA dollars could be used to that to entice a builder to build, and if they could build it for $200,000 or something to that effect. Maybe I'm getting too much in the weeds here, or you thought about that as an option. And it looks like Steve had a comment.
The question is directed
But,
to.
okay,
So I will just say, so for your housing trust fund, we have developed policies for that.
Okay.
Maybe it's time to refresh that with the county board a little
Please
bit.
do, yes.
And we are, later this summer, or I think the latest I've heard is probably early fall, hopefully Minnesota Housing will be coming out with their RFP to get state dollars to put in that. So then, once we have that, and we have the ARPA funds, and we have other HRA funds, we can be looking at rolling out that plan to private developers and hopefully entice more projects to be put into some of these projects. But yeah, we
Well,
should
there's more to
probably
come.
review all
Okay.
that at a
Okay.
future meeting.
well, keep up the good work, thank you.
Okay.
You're going to pass. So I'm going to follow up on that a little bit because I was involved with the New London EDA on projects in New London wherein the EDA acquired some land and then we entered into an agreement, I think kind of what Commissioner Berg and you are talking about, wherein we didn't use an RFP. We had a developer who was interested in doing it, but where we basically provided the land and then they put in all the costs, including not asking for a TIF.
Sure.
Tax increment financing. Do the rules allow for HRA to be able to, let's say you had this piece of land in Atwater and you did a RFP for sort of a reverse bid on, put it out to 3 or 4, whoever wants to take a look at it and say, here's what we expect of you if you want to put in a bid and then see what they do. Is that allowed by the rules?
It could, yes, it could be allowed. We could do something like that. Yes, it's possible.
Because that proved to be a very, very successful, again, it's not home ownership, which would be the ideal. The developer owns the units and they rent them for the very similar size, maybe just slightly larger. But by the time he moved the first shovel of dirt, whatever number it is, they're 12 or 14, I forget, we're committed. I mean, there was a demand for it and I know we'd love to do some more of that if we can find the land and buy the land, so.
Perfect.
So that is allowable.
It is.
Okay. Does HRA have any more land?
We own a couple lots in Candy, Ohio.
Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Any other questions? All right, hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you very much for all the
Thank you.
information.
Appreciate your support.
Yep, thank you.
All right, that brings us to the conclusion of our regular items. We now will move to administrative updates. Administrator Baker?
I don't have quite a lot. I've been working on the budget work session the last couple weeks. I attended my administrator conference last week for technical days. We discussed cannabis moratoriums and which county has them. And so I'll be working with some staff on how we want to present that, bringing it forward, more of an update and some options to the board. Other than that, I would ask the commissioners to look at the July 16th board date. We have 2 commissioners that will be attending the National County Conference, and it would be nice if we could move that meeting to Thursday, July 18th at 9 a.m. But if you could let me know if, we don't have to decide this today, but probably at the next meeting, if it would work to move it to Thursday, July 18th at 9 a.m., we could do that. The other kind of update I have for you is being that the administrative coordinator, we said our goodbyes last week. We've been talking internally, and currently we do 2 sets of minutes. We do the legal minutes, and then we do the iCompass minutes. And we might be going away from the iCompass minutes because by law, we only have to provide legal minutes. It's just double the work for internal staff. And so we'll be looking at that. So if you see down the road that those iCompass minutes maybe go away, that's because what? Because. Other than that, I don't have anything else.
Mr. Chair, yeah. But we're still going to keep iCompass?
Yes, yep, we'll still
But
have a
you're
board
going-
software, yep,
Okay.
yep.
I have a question about the software, but that's fine.
Okay, yeah, yep.
Okay.
All right, did you want to talk about the mayor meeting? The quarterly mayor meeting? Sure. Yeah.
So we had a few weeks between meetings. I'm the chair of our mayor admin meeting for throughout the county. And we host our meeting quarterly here at the office, and we are bringing in presenters. So in January, our first meeting of the year, we had Aaron Backman with the EDC come and present on options for small cities. And then the clerks or the mayors are there to hear the information firsthand. At our last meeting, we had Mark Beshin, who chairs our broadband committee. And so he updated on where we're putting infrastructure, what kind of goes through that process, who sits on the committee, things like that. And they were able to ask questions. And really, it's just a good informational item for myself and the other cities involved. You know, the cities might bring in new clerks, and so there's different questions regarding software and technology, information from the county that flows down regarding public works or financial, our auditor treasurer's office. So there's information that I relay, and so it's just a really good collaboration. I think this has been going on for a number of years, and so now it was the county's turn to host it and chair it. So
When you say the county, I was under the impression that we did it all the time, once a quarter.
we do it once a quarter, but like Leslie Valiant, when she was with the city of Spicer, she used to chair it, and it used to.
No, but I mean host it. We host it all the time.
Nope, it's been moved around before. They tried it at different times. And so we kind of just changed that or go to what needs fit best for everybody's schedules.
Yeah, I attended that meeting. I would just follow up with, I think it's the Atwater clerk who's new, right?
Lake Lillian.
Lake Lillian, yeah. And he had a ton of questions about software being used. And so it was helpful for him to have that networking ability with the rest of it. So, Commissioner Gardner or Commissioner Anderson, either one of you?
I'll start. On the 11th, I took part in a State Community Health Services Advisory Committee event called Coffee Conversation and Consideration. This was around the topic of public health and transportation. We know that there's an impact on health outcomes directly related to the availability of especially public transportation, but other modes of transportation as well. For folks who, pardon me, for folks who have difficulty in being able to access, for example, food, shopping, those types of things. Just being able to get around makes a huge impact for public health in that regard, and that was a nice conversation. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow at 12:15 at the Wilmer Public Library, the League of Women Voters is holding their monthly Hot Topics conversation, and the Minnesota Secretary of State will be there to talk about voting, this will being an election year, and being that it's the League of Women Voters putting this on, it's a timely conversation, and want to invite everybody out for that. Roger and I will be attending the AMC Board of Directors meeting this Friday. That's really all I have today.
Okay, go ahead, Dale.
Just a few things. We had, I had a county ditch closeout in Benson on the 8th. It was a big dam project that they did coming out of the Shakopee Lake, it was combination of different counties were all involved in that. Pretty neat project. I didn't really know that much about it, but seeing the pictures and seeing the conversation that we had that day, a lot of people from the community came supporting it and having questions about silt and stuff that are being affected by that lake. But it was interesting, good meeting. We had a building committee meeting on Tuesday the 9th. Always different things we're looking at, trying to figure out different avenues to go as far as keeping up on all of our buildings we have for the county and doing some changes there. On the 10th, we had a Zoom meeting on a land acquisition for Prairie Woods that's going very well. The biggest one I guess I want to talk a few minutes about is the CCT, Central Community Transit. It's a new committee. Corky had to go off and I got put on it. I find it really interesting. Dwayne's the chair and he wasn't there, so that's why I thought I'd talk a little about it. They still need drivers, and I guess that's the big thing I wanted to bring out. Olivia, they have it full staff, but Litchfield still needs two or three part-time drivers. Wilmer is still in need of about 2 or 3 part-times, and basically on the weekends, they need somebody to drive for weekends. And I guess the thing that I was most impressed about is their wages are very competitive and very good, I think, right now. So it isn't like you're going to do this on a voluntary basis. I mean, they're paying pretty decent wages to do this, and it's a great need for our community. I mean, you look at how many buses are driving around, picking people up and dropping people off. I think that it's a great thing for our community and other communities around us that are involved in this. And I was really impressed. I guess that was a thing that I found. As a farmer, I just think about fuel mileage and I think about vehicle costs, but they go down to the actual tire usage and how much wears on a tire for the routes. And I mean, it was really interesting to hear the nitty gritty about how much it costs and what it takes for people to be moved around in that aspect. The one thing that I think is really an optimistic thing that they're looking at, that the MnDOT okayed, is that we can start using vans now instead of just buses, and that'll make it a lot easier for getting in and out of some of these people's places, and make it so some of these routes only have 2-3 people on, that they don't have to have this big bus running and using all that fuel. So they're going to be looking at trying to purchase some of those vans to make it easier for some of these smaller trips. But really interesting committee. I'm hoping to learn a lot, but that's really all I have.
Thank you. Commissioner Dwayne?
Yep, thanks, Mr. Chair. So I don't have a whole lot to report. We met last Thursday. WCMHH, is it West Central or is it Woodland Centers?
West Central Mental Health Housing.
West Central, okay, yeah. So we had the West Central Mental Health and Housing meeting last Thursday. And I guess we were all there, so I don't know if there's really much to report on that, other than we had a big discussion on what makes up our committee over there, and do we need all the commissioners there or not? And so we're setting up a subcommittee to kind of meet and then discuss on how the makeup of that committee should be in the future. So that was the only one I had, and then I did miss the Central Community Transit meeting last Friday because I had a wedding to go to. It was my niece who got married, so I wasn't going to miss that wedding. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you, Commissioner Berg.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd also like to thank you, Commissioner Dale Anderson, for stepping up and taking the CCT. It sounds like you're doing a great job, and it is a good community. I hated to give it up. I've been, fortunately or unfortunately, involved in a lot of subcommittees all of a sudden. And they all have to do with looking at the bylaws again. And I'm not asking for these, but I am getting involved. Commissioner Gardner and I now are on the housing subcommittee to look at the bylaws and the joint power, not the joint powers, but the bylaws on that and what that should look like. Also, I'm involved in the one with that, as you're well aware, I've mentioned it several times about the 18 County Mental Health Consortium. And that is a pretty major one to get 18 counties to agree to something. We are making progress, and I believe it's the 10th of next month, we're going to present a final draft, let's call it, to all the other counties as well as our county, and see how that would go. And if it's accepted, then we'll be bringing it back to our counties and county attorneys as well. But they're going to run it through an attorney first to make sure that from that point of view that it would be looked at. Part of it, though, is possibly looking at, for everybody's information if possible, I just want to give a heads up. We talked about the cash flow problems before, needing so much money. And that's kind of got us at this point to look at the bylaws. And because some counties did not want to put in some money to help the cash flow. And we're still looking at that and are looking at kind of a hybrid that for the money we may need for the cash flow, that we would have a base amount they would put in, let's say 10,000, and the rest would be based on population. So that way everybody would have to pay a membership due kind of, but different sized counties get different amount of services. But there's a lot to be involved in that because bigger counties provide more services and these people would come there from other counties. So roughly looking at, before we were talking about possibly, and this is not in concrete yet, this is just general discussion, but probably close to twice the amount that we had talked about before. I think we're around 20,000, it's around 38 for Candy Eye. So we'll see how this all works out, but I just want to give everybody a heads up that we're looking at it. And another heads up too, the good news is that the consortium is getting some money from the state for mental health, and it's a significant amount. And so there can be some planning done with that as well. But that's just all in the early stages now. Unfortunately, the more money we get, we're going to have more cash flow problems too. But we're going to work on that. But that's all good news, and we can problem solve those. So I had quite a few meetings this last time. I just want to give a shout out to the community corrections and the vendor program. That was really well done. It was interesting to talk to some of the different vendors and the different services that they do as well. And we had a Woodlands retreat, and we had a very good retreat with the Woodlands board to talk about the board structure there as well. So I could go into a lot more other meetings, like EDC, a couple of meetings on the EDC, the joint ops and the regular board, and looking still at going forward, with the hiring process. And I think I'll just stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. You forgot something, Administrator Baker?
I just wanted to update, I think it was Commissioner Gardner brought up Veterans Day on the Hill, and that is tomorrow. Big shout out to John Christensen from our community for really taking the lead in organizing that event. Myself and Annabeth are the two staff that will be attending. Trish, our VSO, is attending a VSO conference down in Mankato today through Thursday. So Annabeth and I will be attending. The bus is full. We have about 48, 49. We had to cap it at 50. Quite a few number of veterans from Candy County, plus spouses, and then a few from other counties. But it's really exciting to see that we filled the bus, and we will be at the Capitol all day tomorrow attending those events. So that'll be really exciting to go to. And you can probably check out our Facebook page because we're probably going to post some photos for there tomorrow. So, yeah.
All right, so on April 8th, we had the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, which I attended. I was at other things too, like the mayor's meeting, but they've already been talked about, so I'm not going to belabor that. And as well as the Building Committee. Then on the 10th, again, the discussion of the land acquisition out at Prairie Woods Environmental Learning Center. And then that evening, I attended the Mid-Minnesota Development Commission meeting. They moved that around the region. That's a quarterly meeting They move it around the region. Fortunately, it was nearby in Atwater this month, so I was able to not have to get home too late. It's a pretty active organization. I know that for those of you who've been around a long time, Eric Day is now, what, in about his third year, something like that? And he's brought a lot of energy to that organization. And so he talked about some potential grants. They're all, they're not a sure thing, obviously, but they're going after grants. And one of them that might be the longest shot is actually a regional attempt by 2 or 3 different regional commissions to acquire a $10 million grant for public utilities to consider solar for kind of a behind-the-curtain usage. Like, he described wastewater treatment plants as being almost an ideal candidate for them because of the amount of electricity they use. And by the behind the curtain, we mean it would not go out onto the grid. So it'd be sized according to what needs are. And I'm sure most of you know that. More to come on that. Like you, we had the West Central Minnesota Housing meeting. Highway 23, I attended the Highway 23 Coalition annual meeting in Marshall last Friday. It was a very good turnout. Commissioner of Transportation Nancy Daubenberger was the guest speaker, but I think we had representation from many of the cities along the route and counties along the route, and so that was a nice turnout on a nice day. And then that's it. So we have a meeting downstairs. We will let's recess for 10 minutes so I can get some documents signed. And
Yeah, it might be closer to like 15.
okay, we'll recess for 15 minutes.
Thank
And then, so we are currently in recess and we will reconvene downstairs in the community room.